Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. Greetings and salutations, all my people out there in internet land. I am William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. Want to make sure that you all know that you all can become guests of the Black USA News Morning Show. Just click this link. I'm going to leave it up here for a little while so that you all can go through and become a guest on the show. Actually, not just on the Black USA News Morning Show, but on all of our family of shows. We have shows, 7-day-a-week programming, really wonderful community-based stuff. We have political engagement. We do a lot here, and I'm so proud of the work that my people do. As always, want to give a big shout out to the super producer, Kyle Crazy Horse Morgan, and my personal assistant, Grace Oweka, always doing what they can to make sure that we have the information you need to be successful and to know what's going on in the world. Woo, I got something to tell y'all about today. So we're going to talk about January 6th today, the select committee hearings. We're going to continue to talk about that. And I didn't want to just name this update on January 6th again, because one of the things that I realized as I was listening to the testimony from yesterday's hearing was that there is and also looking back on some of the people who have testified earlier in the week and the other things that they've said since they've testified, I realized that this isn't just an issue of political expediency or corrupt politicians. This is a political cult. The people who were down for the treason, the insurrection, the coup, they were down because they believed. They believed primarily because Trump believed no matter which he cannot believe that he lost. And that has become contagious because you have a lot of people who are more interested in winning than they are interested in what the rules. They talk about the rule of law, but the rule of law isn't all that important. And you know how I know? Because they continually violate it. They are not honest about what's going on. And so this is what you end up with. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Make sure I catch my show notes. Oh, let's go ahead and talk about some of the wonderful organizations that we get to work with. One of them is Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an amazing organization. And what they do is that they've created an alternative payment system for people who may be having issues with hunger, or that may be having issues with all of the things like, nutrition and things like that. And so what they've done is that they take donations that they receive and they turn it into they put values toward these coins. And so these coins, hold on, let me make sure you all can hear me. Okay, there we go. You can. Whoa. I was checking the monitor to make sure you all can hear me. So they take these coins and put value to these coins, and they distribute it through existing programs, existing individuals who work with people who live in starvation zones, or they work with people who already deal with or address issues of homelessness. And they're able to give these coins to them and they make sure that they get in the hands of people who actually need them. Then individuals can take these coins and they can go to the participating restaurants, and guess what happens when they go to the participating restaurants? They hand the coins in, their value is $2.50 a piece right now, and they hand the coins in and they get that value in food. No one has to know why they got the coins. They can maintain their dignity. They get to be real people and just have their needs addressed, as opposed to being stigmatized or judged because of their circumstance. Also, the Black USA News has a number of things going on, especially when it comes to making sure that our community is actively engaged in politics and understands what's going on. And one of the ways that we're doing this is that we're re-airing interviews and shows that we've done that had interviews with elected officials and politicians who are running. And we don't just stick with those organizations or individuals who are running for big offices. We do Central Committee, we do Senate, House of Delegates, School Board. We do all of it because all of it is important. All of it is critical. Our participation and understanding about who is trying to be in positions to represent us are important. Getting to find out what they want to do, what they believe in, is important. And if nothing else, we see this in the January 6th hearings. Making sure that we have people in office who are going to follow the rules. That is important. And so one of the ways we're doing that is, again, making sure that you all can hear directly from the candidates or their representatives. And we're also including some of our political analysis in here as well. So you can hear from some of our hosts and some of our community members on what they think about the elected officials who have an opportunity to be there or who are running for office. Oh my gosh, I love it. Especially, this is one of the challenges about doing a show in the morning, because then you start thinking all the way through lunchtime, and I wish I could get. Actually, you know what? I may just go ahead and treat myself today and head up there. A brother like me, I got parking issues, but I think it is absolutely worth it. You know what? I'll see if they deliver as well. So I got some homework to do on my own, but I know whatever I get from there is going to be amazing. The food there is terrific, and I am so honored and proud of our partnership with Darker Than Blue Grill. Absolutely. Okay. All right. I got to make sure I catch up on all my show notes, make sure I say everything I'm supposed to say, because oh my God, we got some stuff to get into today. When I told you all before, this January 6th hearing has been an amazing story. The actual coup plot is like if you had a ninth grader, good in English or whatever, and he tried to write a episode for Scandal. It may have some good starts and it may have some really high aspirations as to what could happen, but their lack of experience will make it pretty plain. Like, a lot of it won't make sense. There'll be a lot of plot holes. And so that's Trump's actual plot. But the January 6th committee, they are more like Shonda Rhimes writing about the ninth graders plot. They do an amazing job of storytelling and really making sure that they anchor into kind of the reality of what's happening. And so one of the big stories, or in the previous hearings, was about not Thursday's hearing, on Tuesday's hearing, Monday's hearing. I'm sorry. Ooh, this week is going by fast, ain't it? Anyway, back in the hearing, that we talked about how Trump put pressure directly on elected officials. And that was, and we talked about that story a little bit, but I want to play a couple of clips from particularly one person, Rusty Bowers, the Speaker of the House in Arizona. I want to play what a part of his statement. So let me set it up first. So the Trump campaign kept calling him and kept pressuring him to call in a special session, because part of their plot was to make it to create enough confusion that would enrage the followers so that they would attack. That was the plot, or at least have enough violence threatened or enough pressure threatened so that that people would just kind of back down. And the more confusion that you get built around that, the more likely it is that you can come in while in the midst of confusion and take over. Donald Trump has always created confusion wherever he goes. And we could do a whole series of episodes. And actually, people have done whole series of shows and documentaries on Trump and his family. But this one guy, Rusty Bowers, he's the Speaker of the House in Arizona. And as they were getting to pressure him, he was like, "No, I can't. If you give me evidence, I want to work with you, Mr. President. I want to help. I believe in what you're doing, but I need evidence. I can't do this." And this is what he said. One of the reasons he said he couldn't do it. Here you go.
What we just heard in that video was an aide to the White House Chief of Staff telling this committee that the White House counsel's office felt that this fake electors plan was not legally sound. Nevertheless, the Trump campaign went forward with the scheme anyway. Speaker Bowers, were you aware that fake electors had met in Phoenix on December 14th and purported to cast electoral votes for President Trump?
I was not.
When you learned that these electors had met and sent their electoral votes to Washington, what did you think?
Well, I thought of the book, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, and I just thought, this is a tragic parody.
Mr. Bowers, I understand that as you flew from Phoenix to Washington yesterday, you reflected upon some passages from a personal journal that you were keeping in December 2020 while all of this was taking place. With your permission, I'm wondering if you would be willing to share one passage in particular with us.
Thank you very much. It is painful to have friends who have been such a help to me turn on me with such rancor. I may, in the eyes of men, not hold correct opinions or act according to their vision or convictions, but I do not take this current situation in a light manner, a fearful manner, or a vengeful manner. I do not want to be a winner by cheating. I will not play with laws I swore allegiance to with any contrived desire towards deflection of my deep foundational desire to follow God's will as I believe He led my conscience to embrace. How else will I ever approach Him in the wilderness of life, knowing that I ask this guidance only to show myself a coward in defending the course He let me take. He led me to take.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those are powerful words.
Those are powerful words. Those are words that sound like conviction. There is literally, God has brought me to this place and I will not betray Him in order to win. And what's more is that if you didn't think that his faith was so important to him, listen to what happens about the impact of the pressure campaign on his family. Listen to this.
I understand that taking the courageous positions that you did following the 2020 election in defense of the rule of law and protecting the voters of Arizona resulted in you and your family being subjected to protests and terrible threats. Can you tell us how this impacted you and your family?
Well, as others in the videos have mentioned, we received, my secretaries would say, in excess of 20,000 emails and tens of thousands of voicemails and texts, which saturated our offices and we were unable to work, or at least communicate. But at home, up till even recently, it is the new pattern or a pattern in our lives to worry what will happen on Saturdays, because we have various groups come by and they have had video panel trucks with videos of me proclaiming me to be a pedophile and a pervert and a corrupt and politician, and blaring loudspeakers in my neighborhood and leaving literature both on my property, but arguing and threatening with neighbors and with myself. I don't know if I should name groups, but there was one gentleman that had the 3 bars on his chest, and he had a pistol and was threatening my neighbor, not with the pistol, but just vocally. When I saw the gun, I knew I had to get close. And at the same time, on some of these, we had a daughter who was gravely ill, who was upset by what was happening outside. And my wife, that was a valiant person, very very strong, quiet, very strong woman. So it was disturbing. It was disturbing.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your service to the state of Arizona and to the country. Mr. Chairman, at this point,
So Trump took him to a crisis of faith, a place where he had to anchor into his faith to stand strong. He talked about his friends and the people who have supported him along the way and how he feels betrayed, but he had to stay true to his oath. Then he talked about how his family was targeted because of the lies that Trump told. Talked about being called a pedophile, and as his daughter lay in their house dying, he had to be outside trying to defend his neighbors from people brandishing weapons. Again, not using them to threaten people directly, like, hey, I'm about to shoot you, but letting people know that they could. So there's a whole piece about gun policy and what that looks like. Sorry, I got caught up on the gun policy because the Supreme Court decision. We'll talk about that later on as well. But so he talked about all of this, the impact that all of this had, how it's changed how he had to stand into his courage. And that afternoon, when the Associated Press interviewed him and asked him, would you ever vote for Trump again? He said, well, if it was a choice between Trump or Biden, I'd vote for Trump. If there is a choice between Trump or Biden, I will vote for Trump. The man asked you to do something that violated your belief in God. His behavior subjected your wife, who you clearly love, to this these overwhelming attacks. Changed the face of your neighborhood. All of that happened. He did all of that. And your response is, well, if I had a choice between him and Joe Biden, then I'll have to choose Trump. I talked to my mother and one of her ministerial colleagues, and I was trying to give them a metaphor on how Republicans approach Democrats and approach winning. They are not in, this is not politics for these people. This is a matter of faith. For many of them, again, not Trump and some of them, but for some of them, this is a matter of faith. And what has happened, it seems, is that being a Republican, winning office has substituted faith. And the analogy that I gave my mom and her colleague is, imagine if you have two candidates, because we're in election season. One of them has been a member of the church since he was young, but he has also had a whole bunch of challenges. He, a couple of babies that are in the church that kind of look like him. There's a couple of times where, the offering needed to be a little much. At the same time, he got, a new electronic device or something. So, and there've been a couple of things, just this is this ongoing thing but he never gets kicked out. He never gets held accountable because he's the pastor's kid. Nobody wants to disrupt the structure of faith because, God is working on him. Actually, I've heard them say that about Trump, God is, he is not a perfect man. And there's a difference between being imperfect and being Trump. That is, it's not even like, to say imperfect is to say that, someone with stage 4 pancreatic cancer is sick. A little sick. Oh no, that they're under the weather. To say he is imperfect is to say that a person with stage 4 cancer is under the weather. Doesn't make sense. It is not applicable to that situation. Yet he would still vote for him. I'm sorry. So let's say that. So that was the kid. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead because I'm still stuck on the fact that he would still vote for him. So I got to finish the story. So I said, so this is the kid. You can't really trust him, but he gets out there. He works. When you give him a task, he will do some of the things. Like he will make sure the neighborhood stays safe or whatever. And he always talks about fighting the devil and the devil's minions and how the devil shows up. Then you have another candidate has been working in the community forever, has provided scholarship money, has done all of these things, but also a devout member of the Church of Satan. Wonderful person, great guy, has all of the accolades, all the credentials, has really progressive policy, all the things that you agree with, all the policies you agree with, he's on board, except that he believes wholeheartedly in the separation of church and state, and he is a devout member of the Church of Satan. Would you be able to vote for him? I'm sorry, who would you vote for? And to sit there and watch them struggle with it, because in good conscience, what would probably happen is that they just wouldn't vote. Because to put somebody in a position that you have a pretty good sense of is not going to do the right thing, you don't want to vote for them, but you also don't want to vote for somebody who's from the Church of Satan. But what also ends up happening, if you do have to vote, most of us will jump all the way into cognitive dissonance, where our mind tries to make something make sense. And we'll say, well, we're going to pray with him. He'll have a lot of the other members of the church around him, and so he'll be okay as he's doing it. But the reality is, that's not true. You know that it's highly likely that he is going to continue to do, because he's him. He's always going to be himself. Hey, Michael. Oh, they dropped a road decision today. Thanks, Mike. Michael Randolph is let us know that they dropped the Roe versus Wade decision today. We're gonna have to. Honestly, for the next week or so, we might have to shift just to straight focus on politics and stupid stuff, because there's a lot of both out there happening. So going back to the example, the metaphor. So if you had an opportunity to vote for a person who grew up in your church and was corrupt, or to vote for somebody who's from the Church of Satan, a lot of my mom and her colleague, they struggle with what they would do. The person from the Church of Satan in this example is a wonderful person, has built community, has given scholarships, has started businesses, has been selfless, because we have been taught that there is nothing good that can come as Christians. Many of us Christians have been taught that there is nothing good that can come from the body of Satan. And that is how a lot of these Republicans see working with Democrats. They can't understand doing it. Let me also hit you and show you some of the things that even after seeing this type of footage, they were still okay doing it.
I understand that taking the courageous positions that you did following the 2020 election in defense of the rule of law and protecting the voters of Arizona.
He posted multiple messages on Facebook listing the contact information for state officials and urging his supporters to contact them to, quote, demand a vote on decertification. In one of those posts, President Trump disclosed Mike Shirkey's personal phone number to his millions of followers.
All I remember is receiving over just shy of 4,000 text messages over a short period of time, calling to take action. It was a loud noise, loud, consistent cadence of, we hear that the Trump folks are calling and asking for changes in the electors, and you guys can do this. Well, they were believing things that were untrue.
These efforts also involved targeted outreach to state legislators.
Hi, Representative. My name is Angela McCallum. I'm calling from Trump campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. You do have the power to reclaim your authority and send a slate of electors that will support President Trump and Vice President Pence.
From President Trump's lawyers and from Trump himself.
And I've become friendly with legislators that I didn't know 4 weeks ago.
Another legislator, Pennsylvania House Speaker Brian Cutler, received daily voicemails from Trump's lawyers in the last week of November.
Mr. Speaker, this is Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. We're calling you together because we'd like to discuss, obviously, the election.
Hello, Mr. Speaker. This is Jenna Ellis, and I'm here with Mayor Giuliani.
Hey, Brian, it's Rudy. I really have something important to call to your attention that I think really changes things.
Cutler felt that the outreach was inappropriate and asked his lawyers to tell Rudy Giuliani to stop calling, but Giuliani continued to reach out.
I understand that you don't want to talk to me now, I just want to bring some facts to your attention and talk to you as a fellow Republican.
On December 30th, Trump ally Steve Bannon announced a protest at Cutler's home.
We're getting on the road and we're going down to Cutler. We're going to start going to offices, and if we have to, we're going to go to homes and we're going to let them know what we think about them.
There were multiple protests. I actually don't remember the exact number. There was at least 3, I think, outside either my district office or my home. And you're correct, my son, my then 15-year-old son, was home by himself for the first one. All of my personal information was doxed online. It was my personal email, my personal cell phone, my home phone number. In fact, we had to disconnect our home phone for about 3 days because it would ring all hours of the night and would fill up with messages.
Brian Cutler, we're outside.
Clerks facing felony charges in Michigan. Poll watchers denied access in Pennsylvania.
These ads were another element in the effort. The Trump campaign spent millions of dollars running ads online and on television.
The evidence is overwhelming. Call your governor and legislators. Demand they inspect the machines and hear the evidence.
Public pressure on state officials often grew dangerous in the lead up to January 6th.
Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Let us in! Special session! Special session! Special session! We'll light the whole shit on fire.
What are we going to do? What can you and I do to a state legislator besides kill him? Although we should not do that. I'm not advising that, but I mean, what else can you do, right?
The punishment for treason is death.
So yeah, that's what we're dealing with. One of the things that shows is the cult-like following. All of these things, the guns and the rhetoric and the winning. It is religious at a certain point. They have to win. Hell, there recently was a pastor, and we might get a clip of that for you guys, a pastor in Texas who was from the pulpit was very clearly saying that if you are a Democrat, you don't belong in his church. That you are a baby killing, pedophile loving, all of these things from the pulpit. We've seen that same pastor and other pastors say hateful things from the pulpit, and it has weaponized people to the point where they are violent. Another reason, why when these people feel that their rights are being infringed on, that's why they cling to the guns, because did you see what they did? The whole storming the nation's capital wasn't the first time that they did it. You saw them in Arizona, in Michigan, around the country, storming and trying to intimidate and threaten legislators. That's what they do. They were practicing this around the country before they showed up on January 6th. That is real. That is problematic. And it is all based on a lie. And I gotta be honest, I don't even think the truth matters too much to them, because they are part of it. It is cultish at this point. When you ask them for the facts, they don't have any. Just like when you ask many Christians about, well, why do you believe? They're not studied. They've not read the Bible meaningfully. They've not looked at any concordances. They've not studied this type of, they're not theologians. But they have their faith. They will either refer you to someone or just repeat something that they've heard. Just like we talked about before with a lot of these conservatives and say the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the defining portion, and the Constitution is like their Bible, and the Second Amendment is like the verse, one of the verses when they talk about the birth of Jesus or something. And so, but when you ask them what does it say, they can't even tell you what those 3 sentences say. I mean, those 3 lines that one sentence says. Why? Because they don't understand what they even believe in. All they do is they listen, and they are more concerned about feeling good about winning this war because it gives them power that they don't necessarily have in real life. And I'm talking now about the followers, the people who show up at these places. It makes them feel powerful because life is actually very scary. If you can fight an invisible enemy who doesn't necessarily attack you directly, that is a wonderful fight, because it just depends on what story you have in your head, whether you're winning or losing. And that becomes part of the point. Winning is the point. Winning is what they want to do. Winning is what they need to do. Without the when, they don't have an identity. They don't have a definition of self. So what do? It will take whatever. They were willing to cheat. Some of them. And I got to be honest, for some of the rest of them, especially like Speaker Bowers, while I don't doubt his faith and his commitment, I also think that there is a genuine calculus, because he's term limited in his role in the House of Representatives in Arizona. So he's running for Senate. So let's not pretend that in a place like Arizona, the Trump base won't be important. And he has put himself front and center in opposition to Trump. So he needs to figure out a way to recoup those that lesson. I mean, the loss, even because, you know, he's telling the truth. And so this gives him the opportunity to kind of try to skate or be on both sides of the fence as much as possible. On the one side, I stood up for my principles, and it was honestly, it was a great speech. The God and the Constitution being, how can I stand before God and have broke my oath, the word, I am a man of my word, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you were willing to do everything else up until the actual illegal stuff that you could have got caught on. And so while I appreciate the depth of faith, we don't pretend that even in cults, the leadership understands the need for the masses. That is actually one of the ways that cults function, is that there is this issue of connectivity, this issue of mutual support. And that becomes part of their one of the defining characteristics of their identity. And so without the rest of the crew, to stand in opposition to your tribe means that you're alone. And the world with Democrats, they're always going to be out to get you. They're always going to bring illegal aliens in. So we need to stick together. They've been able to galvanize millions of people sheerly through fear. And that is one of the signs of a cult. There's always an ever-present threat that can't really be articulated, and a plan to address it isn't really there. It is leave it to those in power, whether that is God or whether that is the president. Just leave it to them. Trust them. And Trump really tried to lean in on that, as you all remember, for that January 2nd conversation with Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, when he was like, you know, hey, we're all, you know, basically you're a Republican. We are all on the same side, because he felt that people just wanted to win. We will do whatever it takes to win. And that tells you the type of man that you're dealing with. And so the speaker in Arizona, he has the ability or the opportunity to try to be on both sides at the same time, and focusing again on the winning, not focus on what is right, not even just focused on the rule of law. Now, I appreciate that the rule of law was his hard line in the sand, but there's so much more before that. And so your argument of faith in God is undermined when you identify a person who stands in opposition to you. At least to me, I'm no theologian either. I studied a little bit, but I'm no theologian. To me, when you stand with someone who stands against your God, that is like standing against your God. So he would vote for Donald Trump. How is that about ethics? And his explanation was that the country was going in a great direction before COVID. Now, that's a whole other set of questions. But even if that's the case, you see what he is. Why don't you find somebody else who does all the same things or have the same philosophies and work to promote them, as opposed to someone you have identified as corrupt, who wanted to push you into the land of illegality and invited you to be part of a criminal conspiracy, literally invited you to be a part of a criminal conspiracy, and you would vote for him again. I was so disgusted until, because you all know, well, I might not keep it 100, but I'll keep it 85, because 15% y'all don't need to know about, and 5% I'm trying to forgive myself. I had to think about my relationship and my feelings about DC's forever mayor, Marion Barry. So if you all don't know about Marion Barry was the mayor of Washington, D.C., I think in the late 70s and definitely in the 80s, because that's when I was coming through while I was growing up there. And we lived in D.C. I loved living in D.C. It was so beautiful, metropolitan, just the number of people and the foods and the experiences and the art and the culture, and just to live there was amazing. And so he was the mayor of that. Now, let me be honest. For a long time, I thought it was two mayors, Mayor Mary and Mayor Barry. I didn't realize Marion was his name because that's a girl's name. I was young. It was a lot to learn. But when I was about 12, I started getting into like, I want to make some of my own money. And I think that's when they introduced the DC Summer Jobs Program. And they talked about it, and kids were working at the pool and working in offices, and they had their own money. I was so excited, and it was all because of Marion Barry. He went around talking about it, and he was on the news. He came to schools and stuff, and like it was a really big deal. And it was going to get kids off of the streets and give them something to do and teach them responsibility. I was so excited, but you had to be 14. So then I started paying more attention. And one of the things that I heard, and when I say pay attention, start paying attention to the political conversations that happen around me. And one of the things I heard people say in my community was that they loved Marion Barry because he cared about people. He cared about them, and they had evidence of it. You know, people, his constituent service was off the chain. Like and it wasn't just for powerful people. These are regular people that I know, and everybody talks so amazingly about Marion Barry, and he became an icon to me. Hey, good morning, Rico. So he became an icon to me. And when just before I turned 14, we moved from DC to Maryland. I was so heartbroken, but by then I had heard so much about Marion Barry and how great he was, and what I saw on him was phenomenal. And then there was the Department of Justice and the FBI sting where they set him up. Well, that was the argument. They ended up claiming entrapment, and he was there to have sex with this woman that he was having an affair with, and she got him to smoke crack. FBI broke in and arrested him. It was embarrassing. They had the camera footage and all that. I was still a Marion Barry supporter. When, you know, and I found myself kind of explaining it away until my ex-wife called me on it. It's like, yo, every time he does something, you're like, well, there's a reason for it. And I was like, I've become an enabler. And I got to be honest, even still, in the last bunch of years, I was like, yo, if Marion Barry came back and wanted to run as a zombie, and I lived in this district, I would absolutely consider voting. But that is how deep. And there wasn't even a Marion Barry cult, just a whole bunch of people who liked him. And so that's what I'm suggesting is how deep it is that leadership matters. We get trained as children to respect people who are in higher levels of authority. Think about this. Most children, you know, not most of us try to teach our children that there is authority and you subject yourself to that you should always listen to the teacher. You should always listen to me as your parent. You should listen to the pastor. All of these people you should listen to because of their positions of authority. And a lot of that intergenerationally has become part of our psyche. We believe that people in authority know more than we do. That's why some people listen to celebrities because they're famous. They must know. If I was famous, and it's that kind of thinking, that focus on winning, that focus on fame, that seduction that really keeps this problem fueled. And so I appreciate having an opportunity to look at these people and have them be a mirror to me, because I had to call myself bullshit because I am a Marion Barry supporter, even in death. Like I focus on the great things he did, and I write the other parts off as part of his personal life. Like I find that I said the same things about Marion Barry that people said about Trump. Actually, there was one time, and again, not proud of this one. He was in his 70s. He was in a bathroom, and there was an allegation that he sexually assaulted or sexually approached. Hell, I'm even trying to downplay it now. That he sexually assaulted a staff person while he was in the bathroom. And when I heard the story, my immediate thing was like, oh, wow, yeah, old dude probably didn't know what he was doing, or blood, she realized. I just started making excuses because I was a fan. And that's what this is. And that's, again, why the January 6th committee hearings are important, because it gives you the truth. Had there been video of what happened in the bathroom, blah, 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 then I would have seen it. Then, honestly, I may have come up with another excuse. But the big issue is that I would have to deal with the facts. And again, the January 6th committee is doing a great job of putting out the facts. Now that we got a little bit Telling me to make sure oh yeah, kind of going back, let me finish up on celebrity. I wanted to make sure I touch these next couple points. In addition to being taught that they know what they're doing and we should follow them and follow their directions and things like that, we create emotional bonds with celebrities. We create, like, I know people, like, there was the YouTube meme where the guy for Britney says, "Just leave her alone, leave her alone." We laugh at it, but that is an unhealthy emotional bond with a celebrity who he doesn't know. He believes he does. He's followed, probably has more information on her health than she probably does. But he doesn't know her, but he has developed an emotional relationship with them. Think about how angry people get when you talk about their sports teams or their favorite actors or actresses or singers. There's this emotional bond, and you throw behind that the office of the presidency. With the way that we've been chosen and the way we see our political leaders and things like that, I can understand why we end up in this cult of personality. But that's why we need to hold people accountable, and we need to have facts. We need to find out what the facts are, not what makes us feel good. Find out who is actually helping us, not who makes us feel like we're going to get help, because the facts matter. It is important that the facts matter so that we have a common shared understanding so that we can move together. Right now, people just go with feelings. No better example of that is Donald Trump. He has no facts whatsoever to support himself or to support his position. None. However, that doesn't matter because he feels like he won. He doesn't feel that he could have lost to Joe Biden. The number of people that love him and the number of people that show up at his rallies, especially during COVID and all the stuff, that there's no way he couldn't have won. He may actually believe that, but that doesn't matter because it's not true. But many people are letting him do it and telling him, and that is a big thing from the Speaker of the House. He is the president, the former president of the United States is still denying the existence or denying the results of the election, and he'd be willing to vote for him again. Now, again, I know one of the big things about the Christian arc in particular is this level of redemption, this redemption story, the redemption arc. However, how can you get a redemption arc when you're still in the middle of the crime? And what's more is that this crime, this focus on winning, this cult of personality is also driven by a lot of people who want power. I can't even say that they may believe, but it's more about the power for them. And they knew what they were doing was wrong. For example, you have, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6, maybe Perry as well. And Jordan. You have 6 of them apparently that have asked for pardons, asked the former president for pardon, and some of them said, well, because maybe when in trying to support the president's positions, the Democrats may come after us. And those people are Andy Biggs, Louis Gohmert, Scott Perry, and interestingly enough, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there was some talk of Jim Jordan, but I'm not sure. I don't think that he actually asked for a pardon, but there's some talk of it. Interestingly, though, talking about Matt Gaetz's request for a pardon, and if you don't know about Matt Gaetz, you should just look him up, Gaetz. He's currently under federal investigation for trafficking a minor, wire fraud, all of this type of stuff. And one of his homeboys turned state's evidence on him. It is so incredibly dramatic and ridiculously dramatic. But he started asking for a pardon not after January 6th. He started asking for a pardon back in December when these charges was coming about. And he asked for a pardon that started from the beginning of time to the present day and covered everything. There are times in life when you lose. There are times in life when you make decisions and they have horrible consequences. Our leaders should be able, I'm sorry, and the last one was Mo Brooks. Yeah, Mo Brooks. It was Mo Brooks, Andy Biggs, Louis Gohmert, Scott Perry, Matt Gaetz, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. But there was some talk that Jim Jordan may have, he talked about it, but I don't know if he actually asked one. So it was Mo Brooks. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure I got that clear because I'm not trying to put nobody out there who wasn't out there. All of this stuff happens, and kind of going back to the fact that the truth has to matter. It really does. We have to be okay with holding people accountable. If these are our elected officials, they should be held to a higher standard. We should not live in a space, we should not exist in a space where our elected leaders, we're comfortable saying, oh, you know, all politicians lie. Or at least they're like, that is not acceptable. They should be striving for the aspiration, for it to be, you know, the example, the aspiration to hold themselves. I mean, hell, they have our trust, our money, and they control the mechanisms of warfare and power. They've got to be responsible with it. But I got to be honest, I wouldn't have these people responsible for a whole lot, especially stuff that is consequential. Why? Because even, and Bowers is a great example of this, the Arizona Speaker of the House, even though Trump forced him in a crisis of faith, even though Trump tried to invite him into a conspiracy that would have ruined his job and would have destroyed democracy, he would still vote for him. That sounds cultish to me. And whether he's doing it as a political calculation or whether he's doing it because he really does believe that to be the right way to go, either way, it's cultish. Hell, even you have Mike Pence now, who gave an interview recently with Larry Kudlow, which whole other set. I mean, everybody that is in their sphere is a whole character by themselves. So Mike Pence was on it, and he said, have you ever, Larry Kudlow asked Mike Pence, have you ever known a president who has been so disconnected to the American people or told so many falsehoods? And Mike Pence said no. Donald Trump was up to 20,000 plus false statements in his term. In one speech, he did 55 or in the 50s of false statements. He did that. And Mike Pence said, no, I've never known anybody to do that. He actually came out last year and said all the stuff that Trump said about him having the power to change the election was wrong. Well, hell, there's a lie right there. And that's a democracy-ending lie. But he said no. Why? Because people believe in him. They do not want to be alienated from the base that they need for their political futures. For whatever reason, they don't want to leave the tribe. Whether it's a devout conviction to the tribe, because it's not to justice anymore, it's not to Jesus anymore, it's to the tribe. Even in the conversation where Rusty Bowser said that he would vote for Trump, he didn't even put a caveat on it about his faith. I will pray on it and let the Lord lead me to blah, blah, blah. It was, oh, absolutely, I'm all in still. Oh, yeah, no, he's still doing the conspiracy, and they've laid out a really great set of evidence. Oh, and apparently some of my Republican colleagues were partners in the conspiracy, but yeah, I'm still on the Trump train. MAGA for life. I guess if you don't want to call it a cult, you can call it a gang. You either in or you out. And in this gang, when you're out, they will send people for you. The vice president of the United States came 40 feet into being murdered. Murdered. And this isn't from the liberal Democrats. This is from Trump appointees who are telling you all this stuff about him sending the mob, about them knowing that violence was the likely outcome of this and that everything he was asking for was wrong. Everybody knew it. Everybody in his circle knew it except the ones who wanted it to happen. And whether they believe they were right or not, there's enough evidence to say that you absolutely weren't right. And you have no evidence that you were. You just feel it. Talked earlier this week about the gentleman, I think it was in Oklahoma, the 3-member election certification board that they refused to certify the election until the state Supreme Court came through and told them that they had to. And even after that, two of the 3 people voted to certify it, and the third, who had to call in from Zoom, said that he wouldn't. And he said that he had no facts to back it up. He had no facts, no evidence. He just had his gut and his instinct, and that's good enough not to vote for certifying the elections, because they were part of Dominion voting system. That's what the voting machines were about. That's why. And by the way, the reason he had to zoom in and he couldn't just be there in person is because he was being sentenced for being part of the riot and the insurrection at the Capitol. Think about that. That sounds cult-like to me. I don't know about you, but it sounds cult-like to me. This has been amazing. I encourage you all, don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Go watch the January 6th hearings. And if you have a comment or you have some feedback on it, please make sure that you come with your facts. Make sure that you have studied and make sure that you are comfortable having the back and forth with me, because this is some real shit to me. Like our democracy, freedom, and all of that hangs in the balance. And I'm looking at it. I've studied it. And so if you have alternative positions or whatever, I'm absolutely happy to discuss. But don't get yourself embarrassed, baby. Oh, so I have had a wonderful time talking to you about all of this stuff. It's all so crazy, ain't it? Shit is crazy. Before we go, let me tell you a little bit about my company.
Hi, my name is William Honolulu Jr., and I'm the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive. And we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop on grant writing right here.
All right. So I wanted to make sure I couldn't let time go without letting y'all know who I was and what I do. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, again, I call upon the white community, because these elected officials are white. These are issues in the white community. I call on the white community to take greater responsibility for your elected officials and work with the rest of us, the communities of color, to come up with a way to help you all rein them in. It is important that we help your elected officials learn honesty so that they can be successful and that we as a country can be successful. All right, we will be black tomorrow.